Here we are, friends. My name is Chanda Branch, and I am very, very glad to be hosting RDU on Stage's Torn. This is episode 3. Here we are 3 weeks later, still engaging in meaningful conversation with theaters on racist negativity. So the first thing that I would like to do is just extend ourselves in a moment of just quiet reflection. For most of us, that's prayer. For others of us, it's just reflection. But I think that we need to continue to meditate on the reason that these conversations are so critical, so vital, and so necessary in these times. So, for just a few moments, friends, let's just be still and be quiet and really think about why we're here. Thank you. So, here we are again. We are continuing our conversations from last week. Again, I am Chanda Branch. I am based in Raleigh, North Carolina, although my hometown is St. Petersburg, Florida. I was educated in theater and education at Tennessee State University. Um, and I have been working as a professional theater here in the area since I moved here after getting married in 2013. I've been involved with small theaters, with large theaters, with community theaters, with professional theaters. And I am a theater educator by trade. I teach high school theater. And so I am directly connected to the next generation of theater performers and artists. Tonight is Ladies' Night. If you look carefully at the screen, I'm sure you don't have to look too carefully, but you will see that we have an all-female panel tonight. That is not by mistake. I wanted to lift up Black female voices tonight because there are some very strategic things that we need to address when it comes to womanhood and our power as Black women. We also have a very important ally on board, Miss Deb Royals, in addition to Miss Belinda Shannon and Miss Martina Sykes. We also have another special guest who's going to be popping in a little bit later, but I'm going to give the floor to these women so that they can introduce themselves, give a little bit of their background, and talk about why they accepted the invitation this evening. Let's start with Martina.
Hi, my name is Martina Sykes. I am a native of St. Petersburg, Florida. I went to Gibbs High School, PCCA, and I went to the University of Florida for public relations, Go Gators. And I am currently playing Shinzi in Disney's The Lion King, the national tour. And I think that this is a very important conversation to have, not just amongst ourselves, but for everybody to see, especially when it comes to Black women in theater and just the general overtone of racism that we experience in theater in this country. And I think especially because the time is now to talk about it, it's a great time to have these conversations. So I am honored to be on the panel tonight for Ladies' Night.
Let's hear from Miss Belinda Shannon.
So good night. Well, it's afternoon here in California, Southern California, but good night to everyone else. Yeah, I'm happy to be on the panel. Was glad that Shonda asked. I am here as a parent of a young African American male child who has loved theater from the time he could talk. And so, there's a lot of decisions that um, his father and I had to make in order to ensure he would have the ability to grow as a young man and grow up and mature in the theater, which he did, and also make some decisions. He's now 19, almost 20 years old, and making some decisions about, so how do we help him move along with this passion into his life's work. And so there were some key decisions we had to make, specifically because he was an African American male. And so hopefully I'll have a chance to talk about some of those. We're longtime Raleigh residents. In fact, we still have our house in Wake Forest, in the Wake Forest area. And we specifically moved out here to LA almost 5 years ago to support his continued growth and exposure and opportunity to get a great start in life, and bridge from a child actor to a young adult who can sustain himself in this industry, in this art.
Thank you so much. Let's hear from our good friend Deb Royals.
Hi, I'm beyond honored to be with these amazing women on Ladies' Night. So I'm a longtime resident of, I was born and raised in North Carolina, went away for a while to Chicago and moved back. And I'm a part of the new theater company, Pure Life Theater Company, that is a new model as far as how theaters run, in that it's a very diverse group of individuals, artists who also have backgrounds in banking and lawyering and administrative, and we all come together without labels to create the leadership for this company. And it's really important, I think, to begin to think outside the box, how we run theaters, operate theaters, do work. And it is really important to have these conversations. So thank you for including me.
So as you can see, we have an incredible panel pulled together for you. The panel is only going to get more amazing when we have one more friend who is actually traveling and will be tuning in with us very shortly. But I think that the first question that I have, or the first thing that I would love to lead us into, is a question around training. Oh boy, that tickled just now, even getting ready to talk about it. There are some things that happen for Black youth around training and theater and arts education that are a little bit different for us than they are for some of our white counterparts. I grew up dancing, and my parents felt that it was very, very important for me to be formally trained as I grew. And I started off at a studio that was not an African-American owned or operated studio. And while I did get some absolutely splendid training, and I got the basics of what I needed to go forward, I always felt othered in that space. And one of the specific comments that was made to me was made about my body and my body shape. I was told that it was nice that I was continuing to dance, and it was nice that I was so interested, but that I shouldn't look to it as a profession because, you know, my butt was too big and my shape just simply wouldn't sustain a professional career in dance. And so that has stuck with me for 20 some odd years now. And thank goodness for parents and others who encouraged me beyond that, and who heard me and believed me and helped me to move past those kinds of things. But I found that in many training circles, I've come into contact with others who have also felt othered in training spaces, and who have sustained some hurtful comments and hurtful things. And I just want to open up the space for us to kind of talk about how that very first barrier can be training.
So how old were you, Chanda, when you first felt othered?
Probably about 7 or 8 years old. Very, very young, about 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah, I think it's something that we don't necessarily think about, because we first go into it, particularly, as a parent of a child who is very interested in performing arts from a very young age. we basically, because we are very strong proponents of training, and in skill building, we basically were just looking at the training opportunities. And in our particular situation, we had a young man who, not only was he an outlier, because he was an African American in the training space that he was in, a conservatory, but also, as a boy, you typically don't see, as unless you're in one of those wonderful spaces in a big city, like for instance Baltimore has a specific program where they train boys in ballet, and that sort of thing. But unless you're in that, in an area like that and have access to that sort of training, your African American son is going to be, one of the only males and one of the only African Americans. And in the first time that, I knew that he felt othered really didn't happen in the performing arts space. It happened at school. And he came and he told me, and he was probably in fourth or fifth grade. And I think it was fifth grade. And he said, Mom, all the boys at school play soccer, but I'm just not that guy. He was the kid standing on the sidelines singing, or, trying to get a play together or something, people acting in a play that he had just made up in his mind. That's who he was. And, God gives you a lot of things, and he gave him a lot of personality that allowed, that to roll off his back, but not enough so that he shared with me that he's like, I'm different because I like to sing and dance. None of the other boys do this. They all play soccer, but I'm just not that guy. Those are the words that he used with me. And so we had an opportunity to talk about that, and being a strong individual to move forward in your passion, and you know, not allow others to dictate, to you who you are or what you do. Yeah.
Absolutely right. And I can amen the fact that Reed has a very strong personality. I love him. Martina, can you talk a little bit about your train? I know we've had some similar training, and we know some of the same people back home, as I like to call it, the real South, in St. Petersburg, Florida. But if you'll speak a little bit about your training and some of the experiences you might have had.
I definitely have felt othered. I think that we are taught to conform. Oh Lord, I can't speak English right now. We're taught to make our voices like more operatic style or classical, and most of us grew up singing in a church, or being a part of chocolate nutcracker and things like that. So you kind of already felt like you didn't have a place. And if your voice had a little bit of air or rasp behind it, it was looked at as like, that's not the sound that we're looking for. So you don't get as many solos, or you're not asked to be a part of certain things. And then it's very seldom that the spring recital or the spring musical theater show or the winter musical theater show is a Black show. You may have, I think Gibbs was privileged because we had Dr. Clark, who really pushed for, we're going to have an extravagant Black history musical theater show, and you guys are going to be, we're going to spend money to make it look like something, and we're going to tell our story. But outside of that, I think the only time we had a show was Raisin in the Sun, and that was like the winter of my senior year. So you have all of these years of trying to fit in, and there's not really a place for you. You may be able to audition for one or two spots, but then there's 12 people in your class, and not considering the other classes that are also competing for these spots too. So you're already put in a headspace that there's not really a place for me, or there's not enough seats at the table for all African Americans. There can only be like one or two that's always picked constantly to be a part of these shows, and it's usually the people that can make their voice sound closest to the classical or the operatic style. And it was discouraging and disheartening. And I think that is something in the training process that can be changed now, is diversifying your catalog with these shows and opening it up to other Black shows, or casting African Americans or people of color in traditionally white roles. You know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't be a problem for a Black person or a Black or a person of color to play something that is imaginary, unless it's a historically white, like Hamilton is not a good example. Because they've completely changed casting.
They broke all the rules.
Yes, they did. Like, but if it was something where you knew in history George Washington and his wife, that is two white people, and you cast them as Black, we probably could be like, okay, you know what I mean? But if there's something that is like Little Red Riding Hood, they could be Black. You know what I mean? Why can't they be a person of color? So I think that with the training, these are things that we need to revisit, because as people go into college, or as people graduate, they decide that, okay, I want to go to New York. You will find that there are more spaces for you, and you don't have to compete with the one or two. They're not going to pick one or two Black people out of the 300 Black people that showed up to the casting call that day. That there is actually room for you, and you don't have to feel like I have to beat out every person of color, and I need to be, a savage, and I need to go in here and be nasty and not speak because they can only choose one. You tell them that, no, there are actually seats at the table for you. And you're telling a different story, which we need to hear, because our story is America's story too.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think that's the other, just to kind of speak to what you were saying, that one or two who was able to like make your voice sound more like your counterparts, or to make it sound more I happen to be one of those that had the ear and the instrument to kind of like do that. But on the other hand, I would get the role and they would be like, can you add a riff? Can you add a run right here? And I'm like, what do you want from me? What do you want? I want to hear from Deb Royals, because Deb Royals has been in theater education for quite some time. She's run numerous camps, and something that I have witnessed personally and have been very, very happy to see is that she is very, very free with her casting. Deb makes great choices, and she gives kids chances who might not get them elsewhere. And she's outside of that school training program. She's in the community. And I just want to give Deb a little bit of time to talk about how she makes those decisions, and how she envisions and re-envisions some of the works that she pulls and explores.
Okay. But I'm gonna begin with something that y'all made me think of. When I first moved back to North Carolina after living in Chicago, I wanted to get back into the work that I had been doing as a performance studies scholar person. And so I taught at Polk Youth Prison. I was hired to teach at one of the oldest youth prisons here in the state of North Carolina, 18 to 21 years old, maximum security. And when I walked into the classroom, they gave me these books that I was supposed to teach with that were dumbed down. And I told my students, after looking at these books, I was hired to teach creative writing and language arts. And I said, we are not going to be using these books. So I threw them out, because in the classroom, we began to discover books that had been donated to Polk Youth Prison, like the volumes of Langston Hughes' autobiography. We dug in and started reading Paul Laurence Dunbar and Zora Neale Hurston. we read Raisin in the Sun because as we explored Langston Hughes, you know, you're listening to the poetry and or like, so talking about the Dream Deferred, the poem by Langston Hughes, and why this was so, was the inspiration behind the title. And then the students read it. These men, these 18 to 21-year-old men were reading Raisin in the Sun. So their bodies and their minds were experiencing the story, whether they're all males, so they're reading female roles and white roles, and the conversations we had as a result of that, and how many of my students would say to me, you know, I was the child that slipped through the cracks. I was the child that people thought was unteachable, you know, that I can't learn. I was labeled a Willie M. And I promised my students, you know, as we were reading Langston Hughes, you know, I went on later, many years later, to do Black Nativity and to bring that back, because it used to be done here in Raleigh. Or for a couple of years it happened, but that was like 25 years ago. And I made a promise to my students. I was like, someday I'm going to do this. The other thing I realized is way too often these teaching situations, whether it be with acting students or at a camp or during a show, there are people that look like me that look at young Black artists, and because they are Black, they associate that's a minority, so they aren't capable, or they're not as artistic, or they're not as talented, you know, you could see the difference with which the white children and the Black children are treated in camp sometimes. And in my mind, it should be this sense of coming together and loving and respecting one another and creating this sense of family where anything is possible. A child that has a heart to be on stage and to sing and to act, the color should not matter. It does not matter. If the heart and the passion are there, you know, you can't stop passion. It's an unstoppable force. And in my mind, it's just like reveling in that. And oftentimes I'll say to whatever the age of the actor is let's just wallow in this, you know, this moment where we're making work and we're digging into this story. It has been enlightening all along the way, though, to be surrounded by people who call them theater educators, and in their minds, they're still separating people out. And it's hard. It's hard to be around that. It's hard to watch it. It's hard to, and the only way I know to confront it is to call it out, or to remove myself from that and do something that is more productive along the lines, Chanda, of what we've done with Pure Life. So as much as it happens on the streets with the police after that one Black child, it happens, you know, or after the Black men that walk on streets that they think they shouldn't be walking along, or Black women in areas, you know, where they're stereotyping and profiling. The same thing happens in our theaters. Far too often we're profiling in a whole different way. You know, well, we're going to make it look like this. We want to look like that. I don't know if you can do that, you know, and we have so much work to do. I'm just constantly reminded of that. So yeah, I would say that my approach is that we should never begin with a child or an actor from this place of this is not something you can do, but the world, you can do anything. Do whatever, you know, do
That's
whatever.
beautiful. The realm of possibility when it's opened up, and children especially. We talk a lot about kids, but there are some adults who are stepping into theater as a place of release, as a place of joy, and escapism, and to be confronted with some of those things that they are trying to escape from in their real life can be challenging. I see our new friend coming into the space. Drum roll, please. Some of you already saw her pop in and pop out, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome Carlita Victoria. Hi, love.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, and I see your beautiful headshot. And now I see your beautiful masked face. Thank you for wearing protection.
Absolutely, always.
It's so good to see you and hear from you. We want to welcome you to episode 3 of Torn. We just want to quickly bring you up to speed. Can you just introduce yourself for our audience tonight?
Sure. I'm Carlita Victoria, and I am an actor. I'm originally from Raleigh, and I do perform there often. And I currently also live in New York. And I also am the director of Darkness Rising, which is a mental health awareness nonprofit specifically geared towards helping the Black community.
It is so good to hear from you. I'm so glad you could join us. She told me it was going to be a stretch, but that it was important for her to be here. And so I'm super duper grateful that you jumped in and joined us. We've been talking a little bit about theater and arts training and how sometimes as a Black woman or as a Black child, you can feel othered. And I just was wondering really quickly if you had any experiences with feeling on the outside or being treated differently because you were Black.
Actually, it's so funny because I was just having this conversation. And so I often in theater, I'm dropping things. Often in theater, I am in situations where I'm in casts that are just Black. And then I'm also in situations where I'm in shows that are not. And so it's a very, very different experience, I feel, when you are in a show with people who you feel at home with. And then it's a very different experience when you're in a show with people who are who don't look like you. And so I'm going to take off my mask because now I am in my community. And you can probably hear me better now. Yes. So a lot of times I feel like when we are when I'm in a show that's not just my community, I feel mostly othered when it comes to my hair. And I think above all, that has been one of the most difficult things that I've had to deal with over time, whether it's something like, oh, we just can't wig you, your hair is too thick, there's nothing that we can do. And then I've been in a show where I'm literally the only person without a wig. And all the rest of the women, they all have wigs. And it's because they did not want to figure out how to put a wig on my head.
And not only are you the only one who's not wigged, but there's not even a style that's suggested or recommended. There's no stylist, there's no product. You've got to dig into your own, tap into your own resources and figure it out. And that's not a responsibility that's put on anybody else.
Exactly. And it makes you feel like you're on the outside, like they didn't think enough of you to take the time to do something, to do that for you. And I've been in that situation. I've also been in situations where there is a wig person, but they're not familiar with Black hair. And and then you just have to like blatantly tell them like, hey, this is not gonna work for my hair. This is not something that's okay for me. Is there, here's some suggestions. What can we do? How can we work on this? And then you don't want to be the actor that's too difficult. And you don't want to be the one that's hard to work with. And then you have to struggle with yourself about what to say and what not to say. And it's just this constant thing that I feel like Black women always have to go through.
Yeah, and I think the males also can share that same story. I mean, you can be on an all Black show, and the person who's in charge of hair is someone who's not familiar with Black hair cutting, or how to do the hair. So I think that's a big one that I think most actors have faced.
That's incredible. I was reading earlier, and I've read so much. I've been on overload, and I've needed to take a couple of days off and like process some of what I've been reading. But there's so much truth in so many things that I found across the board, and that's sort of been at the forefront, feeling other because of our hair and feeling other because of our bodies. Costuming is one of the other places that can be a little bit difficult. The costumer, I had one costumer, and God love her, I was pregnant at the time, and she went out of her way to make me feel that my costuming wasn't sort of an afterthought, or that it wasn't sort of, we're just going to get a bunch of tints in various colors and watch you. She really took some time and did the work and did research and built costumes that I looked good and felt good in and weren't hidden next to me. And she put in that effort. And I went, gosh, there's a couple of other shows where I've needed a little seam allowance in the hips, and I've needed, a little nip here or a tuck there, or I've needed something. And if everyone had been that thoughtful, I would have had a totally different experience. So it's amazing the things that matter. And I think that's part of the conversation. Like, what are the things that folks just might not be aware of? Like, let's eliminate those things from the list.
Well, and Chanda, I think it's just not knowing and not learning and not paying attention to, or not thinking about, or thinking that there's only one way to think about things. We're not all lucky enough to have a Brende Hayes, right? Mama Brende, who's just, worked with Baba Chuck and knows, and she can do costuming for any show, any show. It doesn't matter, an all black show, a black and white show, or an all white show. She's very sensitive to doing the research and understanding and creating dialogue and being, respectful and kind and supportive. Doesn't always happen.
It doesn't. Time out, guys. I'm going to throw some earphones in because apparently my audio is a little wonky.
How's that? Everybody hear me? Good stuff. So I had the privilege, after, that initial experience of feeling othered and feeling like an outsider in some of my training, I had the tremendous experience of participating in something that was and is an absolute phenomenon in St. Petersburg, Florida. Some of the theater and dance educators in the area got together and began to produce what we call the chocolate nutcracker. And that became a training ground for so many young Black artists who either had not had lessons because they hadn't had access, they had not been able to afford it, or their parents didn't know where to go, or they had felt othered and had not continued with lessons. And also for students who wanted a cultural touch point, in addition to the arts training. I had a phenomenal experience. I was able to be with other individuals, other artists who were serious about their craft and who looked like me. I was not asked to alter who I was in order to be a part of this production. I did not have to pretend beyond being on stage or being in rehearsal. I was free. And in that freedom, I was able to grow and stretch my craft and really engage with some other folks who got it, some other folks who understood. And we put on a phenomenal presentation year after year after year after year. And I want to talk a little bit about how being involved in arts in a space that is crafted and designed for you can be uplifting or enriching in a different way than being in a space where you kind of have this and make yourself fit? When a space is created for you, how does that change things? That's for anybody who wants it.
Honestly,
Martina, is that you? Can you give that to us one more time? Because your audio is a little weird.
To build your confidence. You're able to do what. Okay, can you hear me better now? Now you can hear me?
I could hear you. I don't know if you're back.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we've got you.
I don't know what's going on. Okay. I was saying, you tend to flourish and to become more confident because you can do what you do best in an environment that supports you, and with people who push you in a way to be more creative without feeling like I have to be something that I may not be, or something that I'm not as good at, or I need to tone down some of my personality, or in your case, like they're saying like I'm too curvy, so my butt doesn't look as big in this costume, or you know what I mean, just things that kind of make you self-conscious and you don't feel like you're actually stepping into your light. I feel like places and spaces like the Chocolate Nutcracker allowed us to be unapologetically us in every genre and every area, whether it was dance or singing or acting. We just got to like really shine our lights, and everybody went for the blood of the lamb, as we would say. We just went for it because we were given that space and that creativity to do so. And it built the character and the integrity of a lot of our friends that have come out of there to do great things, because we didn't have to apologize, and we didn't have to tone down, or we didn't have to hide, and we didn't have to, like, oh, I need to be more modest. You know what I mean? We could be loud, and we could be, hype, and, all of our energy using every part of our bodies. And it was just an amazing experience overall. So I think that's what being in those kind of spaces give you.
And one thing that I have to say, as you were talking about it, I was like going back there in my mind and whatnot. And one of the things that occurs to me is that it was a space where we were allowed to laugh. Like there were so many spaces where, like, if I laughed, it was too loud, and everybody was like, well, what's so funny? And I was like, but I was enjoying myself. Like, I feel like I was allowed to have joy. And that's something that, very often from our children is missing. I teach high school, and I can tell you there are some joyless babies walking through this world. And I think that some of what we're seeing and experiencing is that lack of joy. It's just not there.
Which is highly unusual for theater folks. Typically there's a lot of joy. I think I saw it happen for our son in his acting classes. So he's constantly been in training in the 5 years that we've been out here in Los Angeles, even though he moved, shifted his focus from stage training, which he had all his life and through Motown, to TV and film out here. So he was always in acting classes, and he started out, being in young teenager classes. But then when he, was in maybe 11th, 12th grade, he started looking for something else in addition to his classes. And so he found these groups of Black actors who were also on the hustle out here, and found a class that he went to. And truth be told, we really didn't need another acting class because he already had one or two of them that he was, going to. However, and I know my husband and I, we talked about it. It was like he was getting something different from being with this Black actor group. Not only was he now with a group of older actors, so, not teenagers. He was with young adults, 20s, 30s. but also their acting classes involve not only the technique and skill building, but it also they spend a lot of time sharing stories, lifting each other up, just really pouring into one another with a lot of wisdom and everything. And he really gravitated towards that, but he specifically went out to find that because he needed that in addition to just the regular type of actor training that you would get going to any other class. But that was really important for him. Yeah.
I found that when I am in shows with people who look like me, I feel more free. I feel free to be myself. I feel free to not worry about code switching and um, certain microaggressions. I just feel free to be more myself. Um, and I've even found that when I'm in shows that are not mostly Black, but there are some Black people in those shows, um, that we still create a space for ourselves. And I think that's also important, that even you know even if you're not in a show completely of color, that you still create a space for yourself within that show, and to establish some sort of community with the people that you're there with. I think that that has honestly helped me so much in my career.
That's incredible that you just mentioned that, because I was just thinking along those same lines. When I've been in shows that are not a majority Black, we find our little cluster, and we can sort of identify with each other. We can um and I think sometimes when you are the only one in a show, it's mostly white, and or there are very few of you. Sometimes things happen out of the earshot and eyeshot of your Black counterparts, and you have to second guess yourself and go, did that happen? Was that a thing? And you just kind of go, okay, maybe not. But when somebody else witnesses it and goes, girl, no, no, I heard it too. That there's something in that is reassuring, and you go, I'm not crazy. I did just hear that, or I
It's very
did just
affirming.
see that just happened. And you sometimes you need that to just sort of be able to move forward from whatever it was, or know what your next step is. So I can appreciate affinity groups, and finding your not really a tribe, but finding the group that you feel closest to and most secure with, and you sort of circle up and pray up and get through it. um I think my next question is going to lean towards Belinda. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you look for in terms of um, training and education opportunities for your Black child? What do you have your eyes peeled for?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, just from a strictly technical and skill building, standpoint, is it the sort of class that he's going to, go through the 6 or 8 weeks and, actually learn something, so so, and out here, you just talk to a bunch of parents, and again, we're very, very much into the skill and the training. And so he had peers who were doing a lot of auditioning, and you learn a lot from auditioning to get on shows and things like that, who weren't training in acting. And we're like, no, no, you're going to always train. You always have to learn. We're lifelong learners in that respect. And so we would look for the content of the training, but then we would also look for the dynamics, what was the diversity of the class. Would he continue to be an outlier most of the time? Yeah. But also, what kind of like scenes was he being given? What kind of scene partners? What kind of material? And the same with respect to even roles that his agent would send him on. We had a strict, we weren't going to send him any roles in which he was, just playing a stereotypical role that we did not agree with. I'll never forget, he was sent out for this one role. He always looked younger than he was, so he would be sent out for a role for a 12-year-old when he was like 15 or something like that. And the role, it was a guest star role in a show that had three lines. And the role was, he was the leader of he was at a middle school, and he was the leader of this little rough gang of kids. And his three lines were FUB, what you looking at, MFer, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
And we're like, you're not, we're not auditioning for this role. You're not gonna, he was like, I'm okay saying it. We're like, that's not the point.
At the point.
No, we didn't agree with him. And we're like, no, that's not who you're going to be about as an actor, and we're not going to support this where some writer has written. Why is it the little African American boy that has to be the leader of the rough gang who's speaking this type of language at 12 years old? I'm sorry, no, that ain't gonna work. So we had to make those calls a lot of time. But if he was in a class, if he was in an acting class, where that was the type of material that he was being given to work his scenes out and with, that was a no. It was like, nope, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. And I already know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you think that his career trajectory would have been different if he had not had such vigilant parents overseeing what he was doing and supporting him in such specific ways? Do you think that it could have skewed one way or another?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I mean, we were just talking about this the other night. You take some risks, but then other things you just don't, we turned down what some people would see as major, contracts or major opportunities. We were like, oh, no. There were, people try to own your creative growth and talent, particularly, for a child. They try to own that very early. Yeah. And even some of the more popular networks and when you are being considered for a role, like if you get to a test, a screen test, you have to sign your contract before you go into that screen test. And sometimes those contracts, if they know that your child not only can act, but sings, and dances and does these other things and are creative, that contract will be what they call 360 contract, where they want to own anything creative that your young person does, even if they're only being hired to act. But they want to own, if this young person records music, writes or records music, they own that. They own whether or not they can be in a movie, and we're only going to pay you this amount. So as a parent, you have to look at those situations and say, is this going to be in the best interest of our kid? He had an opportunity to be in a very popular boy band, but all he would have done for 5 years is sing and dance as a member of a 5-part group, and total creative control. What he could do, what he needed to look like, what he needed to sound like, would belong to that production company from the ages of 16 to 21. We were like, that's a no. Sorry,
Hard pass.
Yep, hard pass. So yeah, I think so we've allowed his career to grow very organically, and because we know that this is going to be a career for him. And so, the foundation has to be, the right foundation. It has to be solid, and it has to be smart. It has to be strategic. It has to include training, and it has to allow him room to grow during these really, formative years as an artist. And so we've been patient with that. We haven't, been thirsty or hungry for something else. This is about his life. Yeah.
I love that. Carlita and Martina, can you guys talk about, you are adults, you're adult Black women in the industry. Can you talk a little bit about how you have to be careful with what you accept and the roles that you portray, and what you what your contracts say? Can you talk a little bit about what it looks like for Black women?
Yes, I would say like it's the same thing. You know, you want to look at it as having longevity, and not just about what is a big deal right now that may put me in a bad light moving forward. And is this how I want to start? Like, I've never done TV and film, but if the first I got an audition and they were seriously considering me, but like
Martina, we're having a little bit of trouble reading you. You're breaking up. You're kind of choppy.
it was like a fans only type thing. And it just didn't seem right. It didn't feel right to start off TV and film with like that kind of.
Martina, you're cracking up on us. I really want to hear this.
I know. I want to hear it
Let's
too.
see if it gets better.
I really want to
I'm gonna
hear
stay away
it.
from a lot of noise.
Oh Lord, girl, tell me,
Is it
tell
better?
me. Okay, yes,
Is it better?
yes, yes,
Okay. Okay, good.
You got to start over, Martina. This
From
is
the top.
exciting.
So I got this audition and it was really good, but the character, it was just really seductive. And even though she had layers to her, she had to be topless. And it was just like, do I want to start my career, my TV and film career like this, where this could possibly, nobody wants their parents to see their titties on the screen. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say, it's just not, it's not what I want. And especially because we know that there are Black actresses that have never had to show their body on screen. If that's what you're comfortable with, then by all means, like, do your thing. But if that's not what you want to do, even if the opportunities are kind of few and far between, you have to pick them the right way. So I agree with everything Mrs. Reed said about, you know, wait, oh gosh. Um, I always call you Mrs. Reed.
That's okay.
Right. That's Mrs. Shannon.
You can call me Belinda. You grown.
I agree with everything she said because it's about longevity in this career and being able to have the roles that you want to be proud of instead of the great opportunities that you may look back on and be like, Lord, I don't want anybody to see this, or this is not a good representation of who I am and who I wanted to be as an actress. So I think that it is very important, even as an adult, to pick and choose what your trajectory is going to be like as an actress.
For me, I completely agree with everything that's been said, and in addition to that, I feel like a lot of the choices that I've had to make have been, am I furthering the culture? Am I helping in any way? How am I serving my own community? Because a big part of what I see is that a lot of times when I'm on stage, if there is a meet and greet, or if I happen to see some audience members afterwards, and if there is a little Black girl, she saw herself on stage. And so what I want to make sure that I'm doing is I'm showing her, I mean, honest, we don't sign up to be role models, but we also kind of do, you know. So I want to make sure that what I'm showing on stage is a good representation of what I might want her to be, or what she might want to be, or what her family might want her to be, and not just some stereotype of a Black girl. So when I'm choosing, you know, there's always these shows that are your top shows that you know, I just can't wait to do this show. I can't wait to do that show. But even when you book those shows, a lot of times the director might want you to portray it a certain way, and I'm not going to be your stereotype. And I'm not, because I don't want a little Black girl to look and say, oh, that's all I can be on stage. I want her to be able to say, oh, I can be anything on stage. And so a lot of that responsibility does come down to me as the actor to let the director know, hey, why don't we try to look at this in a different way? I can be a lot of different things. I don't have to just be this one stereotype that you may have seen this role as before.
And that comes back to that advocacy. A lot of times our white counterparts do not have to go into a job or into a contract prepared to advocate for some of the things that we find ourselves having to do. And so just I want to keep that at the forefront of thought also. Do you guys mind if we shift gears a little bit?
Can I just say one more thing while we're on this? Is I think white companies that are producing material by Black artists, that are casting Black artists, they have a responsibility. Not too long ago, we were in a show and it was like back-to-back performances. I mean, you have a responsibility to allow that moment for the Black child to talk to the Black actor and not ring bells or shake the cowbell to get the people out, kind of thing, right? We have a responsibility to create a space that is as respectful and supportive as it possibly can be. I mean, we should be thinking that, right? You know, we should be thinking about all the possibilities, not the stereotypes. You know, we have a responsibility to think outside ourselves.
And that's exactly where I was headed. I cannot believe Deb Royals Mazurk read my mind. I wanted to shift gears. We were just talking about our responsibility as Black actors, as Black women. What are our responsibilities? What things do we carry? I wanted to shift gears and talk about and to theaters and theater producers, and talk about what their responsibilities are when you have Black bodies on stage, when you have Black bodies in your dressing rooms, when you have Black performers who are expecting to be paid. What are the responsibilities of our theater makers and theater companies to us as Black women?
I even think it goes beyond that in the writer's room. What's happening with how you're writing this story, whether it be a play, whether it be an episode or something like that, and what are you expecting, this role that's been cast as an African American woman, what are you expecting her to do, compared to what, if there are peer roles in that piece of art, what, the non-Black or actors, what are they being asked to do? I mean, I recently had a mom tell me that her 20-year-old daughter was cast in this movie, and during casting, everything went well, but then when they received the full transcript of the play after she had been offered the role, they saw a scene at the end of it where she was expected to be the only one that was nude, right? And they were like, oh no, we can't do that. But it was there were other young women in this play that weren't of color. So why is it the actor of color, the female actor of color, who has to do the nude scene? And so they said, no, that's not the type of role we're interested in. Well, the executive producers, the producers, and everybody else, they had this, they're like, well, we're going to have brunch on Sunday. Why don't you guys come on up? And they went up into this mansion in the Hollywood Hills and meet everybody. And, they just tried to make it, and never in that kind of meeting. So she went with her mother. So they were talking to the 20-year-old, but she's like, I'll be there with my mother. And she went with her mother, and everybody was nicey, but they never, in the hour plus that they were there, mentioned anything more about what she had already said. Okay, I'm not going to do the nude scene. I can do this, but not if you want me nude. And so, they left there. Everybody was nice. And then they got an email and said, we're going to leave the nude scene in. So, it was a huge opportunity for her daughter, who had been out here. They've been out here since her daughter was like 12, working in the industry and everything like that. And they said, no, thank you. We're not going to do it. But why that role? why is in that, I don't know, I'm just saying, it happens in how that thing is written, how the piece of art is written, and it happens, when you don't have representation, either behind that camera or behind the stage, you don't have representation among the different crafts, that go into making this show and supporting the actors. And so that's where you run into these difficulties.
I honestly think it's their responsibility to be culturally correct. You know, it's it's it seems sometimes, I hate to say intentional, but I don't buy the fact that you don't know anymore. You know what I mean? These problems have been around long enough for you to educate yourself on what this means and what this means. Producers responsible if you are producing a Black show to put Black people in the room with you that's going to tell you this is this is that. I worked on two of the Blackest shows on Broadway, Motown and Lion King. They don't have any Black hair people. You know what I
Crazy.
mean? The
Crazy.
wig supervisors, none of them are Black. Most of the makeup supervisors, none of them are Black. This is African tribal makeup. These are braids, things of that nature. Well, can you make your? And I say, look at your hair, look at mine. No, hair when I got into the audition. You know what I'm saying? You were there, so you gonna get whatever comes out this
You
punch
saw
is what you
me
gonna get.
2 weeks ago.
And
You know what my
you
headshot
saw it,
looks like.
I and I'm not straightening it. I'm not gonna relax it. I'm not gonna perm. I'm gonna treat it. I'm not gonna do nothing. You gonna get these faux plaits, and you better make it do what it do, because it is your responsibility to put people in the room that can help you with Black hair or
Yeah.
Black skin or Black writing. I even tell a director, "Oh, well, can you act like what? Act like what? Well, could you be a little more urban? What do you mean? I'm not from the suburbs? Well, will you say it so I can help me help you? Because this is gonna be a teachable moment." And it gets to the place where we as actors can't feel so like job, because it's either my job or my dignity. So while I may have to walk away from this check, I will not get on stage and be a stereotype that you saw on Love and Hip Hop that you think is how all Black women act. And if you want to have a conversation, if you tell me to be more ghetto, how can I do that as an actor? How can I achieve that as an actor? And I had to tell a director, you can't tell me to be a place or go to a place as an actor that you can't walk through personally.
Mm.
So I
That's
need
good.
you
That's good.
to
Say that
give
one
an
more
actual
time.
direction. You can't tell me to act like a place or be a place that you can't walk through as a person. Have to give me action or criticism that I can take as an actress,
Right.
and not what you saw. Now, if you tell me to be like a girl you saw on Love and Hip Hop, that's a little more constructive than, could you be a little more, urban, no, next. You know what I mean? But it's your responsibility. Google is free. Everything that is free. We have Black makeup artists and Black hair care people, and we have Black hairstylists, and we have Black writers and Black producers and Black directors, and we have those people that you could be to the room and come to cast. Ask us. We'll gladly tell you.
And pay
But to
them.
say, oh, they don't know anymore, pay them, because I'm paid to know your lines. It is my responsibility to do the research on your show, to give your character a voice. So if that's my responsibility and you expect me to come to work ready, willing, and able to know your blocking, your choreography, your lines, your music, all of those, I expect you to do the same about the people that you employ.
Mhm.
It doesn't kill you to learn about me and my heritage, especially if you are talking about my story. Do the work. Google is free. Internet's free. There's
Yep.
no excuse anymore.
Carlita, you want to chime in real quick?
Listen, everything that you just said, I was just, yes, absolutely, all of it, every part of it. I feel like it's happened so rarely that someone that a theater does the work. That when it does happen, I'm like, oh, someone is concerned about our culture. Someone is prepared to do my hair. It is to that point. And it shouldn't be that way. And we have to get to a point where it can't be that way. And it does a lot of times come down to us to say something. And again, I'm tired. I'm tired of having to be the one to say something. I have had conversations with directors, with producers, where I've had to say, hey, just so you know, this is not okay. This is, as the representative, unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that this is not okay. And then to see how that person is going to react and see if it's going to, am I going to have to walk away from this job? Are they going to blackball me in the future? Whatever. But you had to know that this is unacceptable and that you can't even use words with me like, can you be more sassy? Like, what exactly are you trying to tell me? What action do you want from me? What are you trying to get me to portray? That's not just make it more black. Because it's exhausting. And then when we do have other Black people in the room, then we can look over at them and be like, see, this is what I'm talking about. But, and it's nice to be able to have that, but so many times we don't have that. And it's just us. And it always comes down to just us to have to say something. And I'm tired.
So let me kick it over to Deb, because again, I have witnessed with my own eyes Deb's work and the effort that she puts forth. Deb, can you talk about how you go about convening a responsible group of individuals to help you produce work that needs to be seen, even if it is not work from your own cultural viewpoint? Did I phrase that carefully for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to go back to what was just said. It is, and what we're talking about, it is, if you're an all-white run theater company, you have a responsibility to do that work. And it's not only just what happens on stage in costumes with hair and makeup, that should be carried through everything that happens. If you're going to take on the responsibility of doing this from the moment that we step into the doorway to step into the rehearsal, every aspect of that should include the work to be respectful, understanding, creating a place that is safe, where we can do this work. And I have learned often, I have learned is, even when you think you've done the research and you're trying to make the correct decisions, I've made so many mistakes. And I think it is better for a white woman director, producer, educator type person to say, you know what, I just screwed up. I am so sorry. Can we stop for a second and let's talk? Help me. Well, no, let's talk and I need to do a better job. It is no longer the responsibility of our Black artists, our Black actors, our Black directors to do the work. It is time for the white folks to do the work. Whether it means reading and research or whatever that case may be, because otherwise, don't do it. Don't do an all Black show if you haven't done the work from A to Z that needs to be done with regard to that work. I feel so passionately about that, because if you're not, it's just offensive and wrong, and it belongs somewhere else.
There it is.
Y'all are tiring my computer out. I had to bend over and plug this bad boy in because the conversation is so hot tonight. Um, I am loving everything that I'm hearing. And right now, I want to shift gears one more time and give space to each of you ladies to talk about your hustle. As Black actors and as Black performers, we take on that hustle mentality. It's not just the work that we do on stage, but between shows, on the side, over here, over there, alternative streams of income. How are you supporting yourself as a professional in the arts, and as a Black professional in the arts, especially? Like, what are some of your talk? I want to give space for you guys to talk about some of your other projects. Let's start with Carlita.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for making space for this. I definitely appreciate it. So what I do, oh wait, that's Dolly. Okay, I still have you. What I have been working on for the past 3 years is Darkness Rising, which is a mental health awareness nonprofit geared toward the Black community. And we started off as a project, and now we are a 501c3, and our goal is to create access to resources specifically for the Black community, because we often either don't talk about it, we brush it to the side, or we don't have the same resources. The resources are not available to us. And so we're trying to create more resources, make them more accessible to us as well. So we have free wellness workshops for the community. We partner with mental health educators and mental health professionals in order to create resources for the community. We have a music and mental health video series, which is on YouTube. And we also do live shows where we bring in our Broadway singers, and we have them share out about their own personal experiences with mental illness. And then in addition to that, we bring in a Black therapist to speak to the audience about mental health and some of the facts and myths about that, in an effort to get more people to reach out and not be afraid to talk about their mental health. And I'm really happy to have this space to speak with you, Chandra, about the things that are going on, because in the theater world, a lot of times we don't even realize that the microaggressions that are happening are affecting us emotionally and mentally, but that wear and tear can really happen on you over years and years and years. And then you wake up and you're like, this has really affected me and the way that I audition. But if we work through those things and we deal with them and we heal through them, I believe that we can walk into the space differently. And I feel like it'll help us in our auditions. I feel like it helps us on stage. And that's a big part of what we do with Darkness Rising.
I have been so proud to see how it has grown, and some of the really, really neat things that you've done, and some of the incredible people that you've involved. Mental health in the Black community is something that is stigmatized. And I think that in the time that we're living through right now, we are going to need to be pointed to some good resources, and we are going to need some good information. So thank you for the work that you're doing in that space. And please drop information in the chat that we make sure it's posted to the show notes, and everybody can find you. About Mr. Talk about what young Reed is up to.
Oh wow, he's he stays busy. I have to say, not being a person who grew up as a creative, I have a lot of mad respect for creatives and for you all who are artists. And the hustle is very real. So he graduated from high school last May, and we had been in discussions. Are you going to go after high school to traditional 4-year college? Well, we should have known that he hadn't been in traditional schooling since he was 12, so we should have known that that was not going to be his choice. But we did say, okay, so if you're not going to go to traditional 4-year school right now, you have to though keep learning, and you have to keep growing, and you have to be in a you have to move towards what you're trying to move towards. And so he determined that he wanted to continue acting. He wanted to continue growing in music. He wanted to, he was doing voiceover, and there's something else. I can't remember what else it was. But anyway, so we said everything that you need to be doing, you either need to be in class, you need to be performing, or you need to be working for income in any one of those streams, right? And so, giving him that framework, and of course, I'm a corporate person, so, I'm like strategy. Giving him that framework has really helped, because as we look, from semester to semester, it's like, okay, what classes are you going to be in? Are you working? He was extremely blessed and fortunate to pull down like a major voiceover contract, like 3 weeks before he graduated from high school. So bam, sustainable income was in place. So now it's about, how do you build your entertainment business that's going to provide your livelihood? You don't have to do it now, because we're really careful to make sure that he still has the space to grow and mature the same way any other young person who does go away, to a 4-year college, the dorm life, everything like that. We're like, okay, you're not going to do that. Mom and dad will be vice president of academic affairs, and we're going to be vice president of student affairs. So you still got stuff you got to do. You still got classes you got to go to, and you still got things in your personal life and personal growth that we expect you, how you behave, what you do, things like that. So that's how we're going to do this part of life. But the main thing is, how are you building that base that's going to sustain you throughout your life and in this career? What are you doing? And so he's been doing comedy. That was the fourth thing. He just woke up one morning 2 years ago and decided, I want to do comedy, and so he started doing stand up at a local club, and they booked him over a dozen times. And now he has this network of seasoned comedians that open up other doors for him. So he does comedy, um, and he, like I said, a lot of voiceover has blown up for him. So he's doing League of Legends games, the gaming industry. He does voices for that, and other animated series. He's still auditioning for acting. He writes music. 3 years ago, he wasn't writing, he just liked to sing. But we're like, if you want to have a career in the music industry, you better start creating. And so we found some courses and some influences that would allow him to learn how to do that. And it just was like lighting a fire. So he released his first EP last September on his birthday. So he has music out there on all the platforms. But he also is getting ready to start on his second album. He gigs, so he'll get a live band together, and he'll go and he'll perform a show. Um, and the most recent thing was his activism. I don't know if you guys saw, but he and a friend, Reed always has, this ability to bring people together. So he and a friend decided that there wasn't enough going on in Burbank around, activism around, the police brutality and issues. So he and his friend, in 3 days, they put together a flyer. They went to visit the Burbank Police Department and say, hey, we want to have a march. And Burbank Police Department was like, okay, cool, and they agreed on the route and everything like that. And so, 1,500 people showed up for this march that Reed and this other 18-year-old led. And because of that, he's been asked to do a whole bunch of other marches. He's been on panels. And then he worked with two of his industry friends and Facebook to produce this show called Speak Up. And so, he stays busy, but he's okay with it, because he's in what he loves, and so that's what he's doing. That, again, the hustle is real, but he's embraced it. It's become very natural to him, and for that reason, I don't worry about him long term. He's going to be able to figure it out. He's going to keep a hustle going in a number of different lanes. And that's another thing. A lot of people are like one dimensional, and they only want to do live stage, or they only want to do singing, or they only want to dance, or they only want to act. he's always wanted to do a couple of things. And so we've always encouraged it. He's had friends that told him, you don't seem focused, that criticized him. But, that hustle where he has the things going, like when the quarantine hit, he didn't miss, in the studio shut down and everything, he didn't miss a beat, because he's doing voiceover. And so Cartoon Network gave him equipment and said, "Oh, you're going to have to do this from home now." And so he just kept working and doing it from home. So, you know, it's, sometimes you just have to, follow your passion, but have a strategy. We're like, you're not just going to be freestyling out here.
In these streets.
Right.
I'm so impressed with the growth. I met Reed years and years and years ago. He was a tiny tot and he was just, he was cute. And like he has grown into a young man and he's handsome all of a sudden. And like, it just is mind boggling, the growth. And I just want to acknowledge you and your husband for all of your arts involvement independently, because I know that you all are supporters of the arts broadly. And I also want to thank you for being such a tremendous parent to Reed, a parenting team, because like you said, all of your strategies and keeping him on the straight and narrow, encouraging and pushing, but giving parameters, the guidance and support that you're giving him is something that a lot of other young Black performers are not getting rather. And so I want to thank you for extending yourselves and for some of the sacrifices that I know you guys are making. And I also want to invite you, please post whatever it is we need to know in this chat so we can track Reed and follow his progress and see all the wonderful things that he's got going on.
Thank you. You're very gracious. He ain't been easy, but we're all still hanging out together.
That's awesome. Martina, you're up.
I have a nonprofit organization. It's called the Heart Mission, and it's a community service-based organization that helps the homeless, to help feed and clothe the homeless, veterans, foster children, domestic abuse victims. And the way that it's kind of set up is it's able, twice a year I come home and I do like events, and it's very like arts based, so they know that somebody from like a theater background is putting it on. And we'll have like live performances, but we always like, we do like a big banquet. So like I'll rent out like the Palladium and it'll be like a huge banquet where they can sit, and then the clothes that have been donated, we'll put it up like a backstage area with like gondolas and the shoes and goodie bags, so they could go and pick their own clothes and shoes and feel like it's like a shopping experience. And then I'll have like some of my friends come in and sing and dance and things like that. And I can say probably most of the time, actually every event that I've had, it was started March 24th, 2016, while I was on Motown with Little Reed, and he was just a baby. Every event that I've had, one of the residents of the shelters have gotten up and sing or danced or, show their talent. And it was just amazing to me how talented, people in the shelters are. And it's like needs have not been met, so you would never know it. You know what I mean? Because you can't really chase your dreams if you're worried about where your next meal is coming from or where you're gonna sleep. So I'm trying to like really get it up and running so that my ultimate goal is to one day own my own shelter, ideally to take a vacant theater and turn it into a shelter where people can, be taken care of from the ages of birth all the way up until old age, and just creative space for them and resources for them, that if they are creative, that they will have a resource to be able to, follow their dreams as well. And I also have me and my brother, who is also in the industry with me. We have a scholarship for African American students that come out of St. Petersburg, and that they either go to college in New York or they're going to go out and get on that New York grind. It's called the Sykes Kid Scholarship Fund. That's me and my brother's like hashtag. So anything we do, if he gets a new show, if I get a new show, it's like pound Sykes Kids, whatever's going on in our lives. So it's a Sykes Kid Scholarship that is for African American students that, we want. There's so much talent that has come out of St. Petersburg, and we wanted to really reach back in and let them know, like, we see y'all, and not only do we see y'all, we're going to sow into your lives, and we're going to make sure that you know that you got people in New York that got your back. So when you come up here and you need something, or you need to know how to audition, not only are we going to help you along the way, but we're going to sow into your dream of your life, and you can use it from anywhere from like books to like rent or headshots or anything like that. We just wanted to provide that resource for them as well.
That's amazing. I am floored by just your heart for people, and your intelligence around organizing all of that, because as an event planner, I can tell you it's not easy to like get people into a space and organize this versus that and have a meal, and there's lots of working parts, and then all of the marketing that goes into it. Make sure that you also put the information in this chat so that we can connect you to our viewing audience. But just know that your effort is seen and appreciated. It really is. Miss Deb, why don't you tell us a little bit about upcoming projects that you have?
Well, we're working on it together. Chanda and I are both a member of the core leadership for this new theater company that we've created. And we were in the process of preparing for a production of Pearly, which hasn't, I don't know if it's been done ever in Raleigh. I'm not directing it. I'm a part of the group making it happen. And so because of COVID, we're going to have to move the dates. And last night when we were in a production meeting, we started talking about this, how to produce, how to educate, how to get people so their experience of this story is not coming and sit down, be entertained by the beautiful music and the lovely dance and the nice set. All of that's wonderful, but the Pearly is a piece about Jim Crow, and there's a history there that is so integrally important to this conversation that we're having. So as a result, we decided to do, and this, I have to give a shout out to Darion Hawkins. We're like, we need to do a workshop, and he's like, we can call it the Pearly Masterclass, and let's start picking out, nuggets, aspects of what it takes to do the show and create this space and make this this production happen. Let's do 8 weeks or more of some type of educational programming that includes aesthetic and set and director's vision and why it's unfolding this way and how important that is. And the hope is that the experience of the show is going to be one where folks, the liminal space of the theater, the magic of that happens. They're surrounded with all this thought. There's been the master class. So when you get to the actual performance, maybe a shift towards a different kinds of understanding or a new awareness around history that continues to be shuffled under the rug. Let's just pull it out. Let's pull that out and let's look at it and let's experience it, and then let's shift, from that. So that's one of the big projects right now that we're working on, and I'm just blown away by the beauty of everything these ladies here at Ladies Night, from a mother to we've got a mom showing us, modeling how to be better parents, because that rolls over into every aspect of our lives, how we need to think about and lift up the homeless and, providing food. And, it's just, and folks struggling with mental illness. I'm just blown away and just beyond honored. I'm humbled. So thank you.
I have such amazing friends, and I count each of you ladies as my friends. That's why you're here tonight sharing this space. And I am so, so excited that everything that you're doing in isolation is eventually going to bump into what the next lady is doing, and that's going to bump into what the next artist is doing. And this is how it grows, and this is how we change. This is how we move the mountain. And so I'm just tremendously excited about everything that you guys are doing, and glad that I could lift up what you're doing individually so that you all can connect to each other. Because like Martina, Carlita, I'm going to put you two in a box and shake it and see what happens. I cannot wait for that. And then we're going to dump Reed over in there and shake it one more time. And then we're going to dump it out on top of Deb and sprinkle her with it. And we're just going to see where all of this goes.
Yeah.
So I have one final question for you ladies on tonight. And it is a question that you may or may not have gotten recently, but how are you? Let's go to, I don't know, who wants it first? Let's go reverse order. Deb, how are you?
Let me move. I was really struggling this week with a whole lot of things. I'm thinking about reasons why I left, some of the companies I've worked with, and making hard decisions because I felt like the more important thing was to do the good thing. And I was talking to my good friend, Philip Bernard Smith, so I'll give him a shout out. And he said, you need to remember that Baba Chuck Davis and your dad are always close by. They may not be here physically anymore, but they're here. And then he said, we need to go down to a creek and stick our toes in the water and just talk. And I was like, thank you. I needed that so much. Just the image of sticking my toes in the water and chatting with him, it helped quite a bit. We have such a long way to go. And I really honestly don't believe that some of the white artists and white producers and white directors are trying to do the wrong thing. Again, I think if you're going to do the work, you just need to research, learn, understand, get a grip, support emerging professional Black theater companies. I had somebody tell me a couple years ago, Black theater companies, that's passe. That's passe. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Why would they create a Black theater company when they can come work for us? And in his mind, he did not see the stupidity or the ignorance of that. We should be lifting each other up on an ongoing basis. And we're not going to change everybody's mind. And, again, I think Pearlie is a beautiful metaphor for what we're experiencing. Old Captain, old Captain's dead. He's dead. And we may not ever, we don't have to worry about changing him, but we have this moment to change, to grow, to do the work, to acknowledge truth, to face it. And yeah, sometimes it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt, and we're going to understand. I'm going to understand as a white woman just all the mistakes, the flaws, the ignorance, what have you. But it is my responsibility as a human being to my sisters and to my brothers in this world to do the best job I can to move beyond, to work towards this place of loving one another, right? I know I'm the idealist I'm always the Pollyanna, but I do believe that there is a way to work toward that. So thank you again, blown away.
Let's go to Martina. How are you, Martina?
I'm good. I have to be honest. I am grateful for the break. I've been on tour for 3 years. My body was like, girl, that puppet is, that was next level. And I get to be with family for a significant amount of time because before this tour, I was on Motown on tour, and I haven't been home for more than 2 or 3 times since probably college. That was 2010. So, to be able to share and spend actual quality time. And because we're quarantined, it's quality time. You know what I mean? To spend that kind of time with my family and to love on my grandparents that I don't get to see a lot, and they're still living in their 80s. And I mean, it's like crazy circumstances, and I'm under the circumstances, I'm sad to not be on stage, but I'm happy to be in Florida and to be able to regroup and to refresh and to get new ideas and, love on my people and see my people and, knowing that everybody is safe. And, with the racial climate, it's very upsetting. But we got all the time right now to get on these ideas and to collaborate and to get on these panels and to meet new people that we can, get in touch with. That's like, okay, how are we going to do this thing? Because we have an opportunity now that we never had before, and that we only have time to focus on being better people. So I'm excited because I'm like, let's go. I'm refreshed my body, my muscles ain't aching no more. So, so I'm like, I'm ready to go.
That's the part they didn't tell you. That puppet is the truth.
That's 30 pounds.
That's a whole other panel. I'm gonna have to just get on my Facebook and figure out live myself and be like, Martina, just tell me everything. Let's start from the beginning.
That Lion King was an amazing idea. But the execution of being able to turn into an animal 8 times a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you put it that way, that's other levels. Like you called it before. That's other level. Oh my God.
That's
Ooh. Carlita,
so
friend, how are you?
I am actually doing pretty well this week. I am I'm back in New York. I was in North Carolina. I was doing Memphis when everything happened, and we didn't get to do it, but it was so nice to be around all those Black people. And it just felt like home. I was home. I was home with my family. It was good to just be loved with my family. And even though we couldn't do the show, it was just nice to be able to quarantine with my family. And I'm back now. And I'm also, Martina, I'm unpacking my house, which I moved into in November and have not been back. So it's nice to be able to finally unpack and just focus on Darkness Rising and spend some time with myself. Which, when you're away and when you're on tour and when you're in shows and when you're doing this and doing that, you don't really have time to focus on yourself. So that's been a blessing. It's been, I think, difficult sometimes to quarantine alone. I do have a dog, which has been great. But with what's going on in the world um, and feeling like I want to use my voice in the most helpful way, but in a very specific way. It has been good and also difficult because I have asthma, so I don't feel comfortable going out into the streets to go protest. So it's that balance, finding that, but also using my voice in the best way that I can, knowing that's what I was meant to do, has been good. So yeah, right now I'm feeling really grateful. Deb, I used to dance with Baba Chuck in the African American Dance Ensemble, and I miss him every day. I miss him every single day, and it just meant so much to me to just hear you say his name, because I do feel like he's with us every day, and he's leading us and guiding us every day, and especially with what's happening right now, I still hear his voice, and it helps me.
Right.
I have to say really quickly, he hovers around us so much. I was in Morocco a summer ago, and in a place nobody spoke English. And you know, Baba used to say, you never look down on anybody unless you extend your hand to lift them up. And up on this tree in Marrakesh in a garden where hardly anybody spoke English, in English, was that quote.
Wow.
Like, holy cow, that's where I got Carly's, that's when I got Carly's outfit from Morocco. I was just like, Baba, you're always there. You're always there. Thank you. Thank you.
I find Bubba, we have a special guest coming in. Hi, Mommy, she says. We have a special
again. Yeah, I find Bubba in butterflies. Whenever I look around and I'm, you know, feeling some kind of way, like little butterfly flitters past and I'm like, oh, hey, Baba. And I also think of Mama Jai very often and like just seeing her, well, y'all know what time it is. Just seeing her on Facebook and Miss Paulette Walker Johnson and some of the other really great teachers that I've been so grateful for because they taught dance, they taught acting, they taught movement, they taught stage presence, but they taught life. And I'm so grateful for their teachings and for the information that they laid in my spirit. And I always look to them, those that are still here, and just send a little love note or a, hey, I'm thinking of you and thank you again. And where Baba is concerned, I just give A by A to the universe and just so grateful, just so grateful. So I am, she's being lured away with the pouchy. Nope, she's changed her mind. I'm going to use this space to say that this little nugget right here is the reason that I do it all. She's the reason why all of this is so important and why I feel like it's so critical that we use this moment to get it right. We use this moment to fix it because my daughter is coming up in the world. She's already displaying musical ability and dance talent. A proud mommy at almost 2 years old. I'm already bragging on my baby being able to move, but it's one of those things that like I want to get it right for her. I want to make sure that she has a better here, baby. You want a poachy? That she has a better and an easier path than I did. And for all of those in her generation. What, baby? I know, we're almost done. So I am going to thank you, ladies. I'm going to also go ahead and let you know that Lauren, who is the founder and creator of RDU On Stage, is going to be on tomorrow with Greg Ellis, who is the writer and producer of Juneteenth, the play. And we know how critical that work is. I'm so excited to see that. Hey, baby. That's going to be at 5 o'clock right now. No, not right now. That's going to be at 5 o'clock tomorrow, right here on the Facebook Live. She's going to be interviewing Greg Ellis. They're going to talk about his work. They're going to talk about the live presentation, the streaming presentation that's going to be produced, and it's going to be a fun time as always. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Torn Episode 3, Theaters on Racist Negativity. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation, but moreover, I hope that you have taken away something of substance from our conversation and that you are ready to dig in and engage in the work that we're talking about. We'll continue the conversation over on the Facebook page for Torn. Join us. We have a group. You're more than welcome. There's really great literature over there. Articles are being posted, conversations are being had. And we're really excited about the speed with which this project has taken off. So thank you all. Good night and God bless.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. I love you, ladies.
Love you all.
Ladies.
Love you.
Love you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give a kiss. Mwah.